a twin stick, Jim, but not as we know it.
I knew you were trouble the second I laid eyes on you.
Excuse me. I just have never heard this kind of music before.
I am Couch Coop and we're going to be looking at Go Mecha Ball, and this came out over on the Xbox a few months ago, actually last year, but we've just had it released on PC on Game Pass and it is a Microsoft exclusive. Apologies, Sony fans. Actually, the second really awesome roguelike to be sitting over on that service. We do have RoboQuest, and yes, this is a twin stick roguelike that plays a little bit like a pinball game. Us high-ranking gaming elders will remember Snake, Rattle and Roll. Bruh is responsible for that box art. That looks like my maths book in 1994. Identical level layout almost, but running at 600 miles an hour. And that's one thing I will say about this game. It is immediately appealing because of the control mechanism. You go full Samus and you get a lot of freedom. You can use these Tony Hawk style jumps and stunts and start looking like a complete expert within seconds. That's how I felt anyway. The roll sits on the triggers and you can't fire whilst in that form, and you get a boost. It works as a knockback. You can sometimes time and get enemies to be stunned. It's pretty awesome how the combo system works as well. Up there in the top left you can drop moves and you can link things up and genuinely play the game like you would any other high score system. There's no online leaderboards as far as I'm aware, but it's very cool to be rewarded for linking these moves together. The weapons are pretty out there. There's some really cool sort of spread weapons and bounce mechanics on certain projectiles, and there's just the classic machine guns. And look at the opening list, it's pretty extensive. There's also 4 different types of protagonists to play as. I'm Mecha Cat, I think. There's 3 other silhouettes. Really interested to see what they give me. We do have the classic open up things to increase the drops when you're replaying through levels. You've got that nice permanent layered setup, and I do like the aesthetics, almost like Fruit Machine. Very bright, this game, almost leaning on a sort of cartoon cyberpunk genre. But it's relentless velocity that's going to get you addicted. You technically can't block, so staying mobile and moving around the whole time is the key to getting that decent score. I love the idea of the half pipes being both vertical and horizontal, and you can change stuff up really easily. It is a little bit of a niggle trying to get height in the game to get to a platform that isn't lower level, and also spotting that with the game's tilt design can be quite difficult. It's nothing worse than just hitting something and stopping immediately. It takes you straight out of the immersion. Running on full settings, 1080 with 60 frames obviously, but there is some stutter when new stuff comes on. It's one of those weird ones where the PC just doesn't like it first time round, but once everything's familiarized and you've done a few runs, it's just a hell of a thing to witness and to hear and to play. Let's have a look at those enemies, because you have certain ranks. There is a permanent thing on the outside of the map firing at you the whole time. That's where those circles are appearing from, and when you first start you're like trying to get it. That is the thing that's pushing the permanent movement alongside being fired at by the normal stuff. I do like the idea of the ammunition drops happening if you get some of the smaller things, and that is one thing I will say. That is the other issue with the game for me, is you are constantly running out of ammo. That's, I think, on purpose. It's trying to promote that bash mechanic, but you are looking up to the top right, switching your weapons out all the time because you just can't find enough ammunition. I think I'm probably a little bit trigger happy. But back to the enemies, you can see that I had to circle some of them because the front is impenetrable. Later on you get things that heal, you have to start prioritizing with what you're taking out. There is urgency there, and I think they've done quite well on the variety with enemy type. This is the sort of mid-level, get the option to use the shot for a buff before a boss fight. That's a very cool idea. You do see it in most roguelikes. You've obviously got the obligatory cat attendant, and with this you also get that choice for 3 direction after the bout. So it's a wave system in a set level. Once you've got all 3 done, you then get the chance to sort of choose what sort of areas you want to go in with your ordnance. You can see down there I've got a grenade on R1. That is constantly switching out, and you will never really have too much duplication on those R buttons. We do have a tiny dose of nightmare fuel with some of these bosses, right? They're big insectoid things, they do come charging at you, and that is where the dodge comes into play. Once you're in Samus mode, you hit the other trigger and you'll get a squirt of speed. That is basically how you get out of trouble. After the first boss, things start changing up with what you can use to get around the level quicker. There's trampoline systems, and there's also a wind and conveyor belt system that I'll show you at the end of the video. For me, just getting my head round that half-pipe system is enough, let alone having random yellow trampolines everywhere. And that's where you see the pinball reference also with the sort of corner bumpers. You can really chain up damage using the Samus system and the objects in the map to prolong that combo, because the actual roll and bash also has a cooldown. That's the icon right down there, dead center bottom of the screen. You cannot spam that. Are the bosses re-rolled? No, not to my knowledge. So the major roguelike areas for this game, for me, are sort of the unlock system and the weapon drop power-up setup, and that sort of layered progression that you get with frequent play. Of course, unlocking new characters. I will say this guy, straight out of Next Machina. Did many people show interest in RoboQuest on your channel? Not really.
Couch Coop must reign supreme.
That is online co-op, so pretty amazing for that setup to be embedded into a first-person shooter roguelike. Has this got any local or online elements? Not at all. I was thinking about how you could implement local co-op with this, and it would have to be a split screen, right? There's no way the two of you would be able to manage these mechanics just on a singular setup. So once you've got the trampolines on board, then you've got wind and the conveyor stuff, and this is where I sort of came a little bit unstuck. It's quite difficult to get elevation and work out where you're going to land. You overshoot a lot of things, and it sort of took that hectic combo gameplay away from me. I just think I need to get my head round some of the new mechanics that are introduced in later levels. I think I'm on my 3rd boss. Instead of telling us this doesn't have local co-op, can you show us some twin sticks that do? I think Next Machina is one of the only twin sticks that could keep up with the pace of a game like this, and of course it is local co-op and from the legendary Housemarque.
Secret human saved.
For amazing current gen sci-fi graphics as opposed to hardcore arcade action, I would recommend The Ascent. That is up to 4 player, and I'm still enjoying this game. And for what I would bill the thinking man's twin stick, a bit more adventure and substance, I would say Hyperlight Drifter. All 3 of these games will be linked in the description, and they appeared on my top local twin stick list. Now, I have been moaning a little bit about the channel's performance this year. I will keep spirits up, and I've got one of my favourite games on the PlayStation 4 coming out as a PlayStation 5 review in the next few days. This one's huge for me. Was of course Couch Coop, and I'm not sure if I mentioned, but I do have a RoboQuest review on the channel. I'll see you down there.